Hi there, I'm Michael Carr. Welcome to Carrma's Ask an Expert series, where we ask film and TV experts about different challenges they've faced. Today, I'm coming to you from Carrma's Studio 2. Since we're talking audio, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with super knowledgeable production sound mixer, Jamie Gambell. Jamie has worked on productions such as Good Trouble, Welcome to Chippendales, The Old Man, The Mandalorian, Captain America Winter Soldier, the list goes on. Let's check out the conversation.
Okay, I'm here with my good friend Jamie Gambell. And Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today, man. This is awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. One thing that I would love to hear from you about is dealing with noise. You are a on-set audio mixer, laving up the talent, booming, making sure the levels are correct, and dealing with all types of crazy scenarios, I'm sure. In, re-recording mixing, like we do at Carrma, we're constantly cleaning audio. What are some different scenarios you've come across where you're in a noisy environment? How do you mitigate that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it was kind of perfect. As you were doing that little intro, there was an ambulance that drove past and a helicopter that went overhead. So,
yeah.
It was almost on cue. A lot of the approach that I have, that people I've worked under have had in the past, because we're not as involved with the location scale, especially if you're on a long-running TV show or you're on something where you're doing episodic stuff, oftentimes you're being handed the location and told this is what you're going to encounter. The approach is to start thinking as far out as you can and start coming in and to say, what can I control? How much of it can I control? And when can I control it? And then start working your way in. And at some stage, you're going to encounter things that you have no control over, like a helicopter, like an ambulance. But the things you can control, you start working on, okay, what are the gains that I can get from controlling that? What do I get from that? Once you've worked your way in from that kind of broad idea, you can start problem solving on a smaller scale. You can start thinking about the logistics of what the lens is looking at and when you can do stuff. I have a very good example of that. We were filming in a loft, and at one end of the loft was a brewery, and it was the bottle collection area of the brewery. So randomly throughout the day, you would just hear glass smashing and glass pouring into containers there. And they cut thick, like polystyrene foam, and wedged it into the space. They cut it to size to cover the whole wall. And we're talking like 2 foot thick foam wedges. Wow. And the idea was, when we're not looking that way, we're going to completely baffle all of this and rescue as much of the audio as we can.
That's super smart and nice of them to go to that. Extreme is maybe not the right word, but to put that effort in, to make that happen for you.
There's certain things you can do. You can build on the fly baffles, a C-stand with a carpet very clipped up and put in a certain position will do a lot of killing echo and reverb and stuff like that.
That's cool.
I always try and record as flat as possible. I don't want to EQ anything because, there's someone who has a whole mixing board that can do that much better than I can on the fly. So I record everything flat, but at the same time, you have to produce something that isn't an echoey, reverby thing for the people listening there and for the picture editor.
So you want to make sure that mix down sounds halfway decent too. So you're probably still having to deal with some processing for that mix down, I would assume.
When you're mixing, you have to think of those different levels. You're mixing on the day so that the director can hear, so that they can do their job, and so that the crew can hear what they're doing, like camera, focus pullers can hear what's going on. So you're creating a track for them to hear. Then you're creating a track for the picture editor that's going to sit there for a long time using that track. You don't want them to have to keep dipping into the ISOs. This
might be getting a little off topic, but a lot of times in trailers, when we're working on a campaign, we'll get audio that we're just like, how is this bad? And I think a lot of times what it is it's either audio that's going to end up being ADR'd but has not been yet, or it could be, now that you've said it, that pre-processed mixdown.
Yeah, I was working on this was a feature in England that I was working on. I was doing a second unit on that, and we were working with a hip hop artist who was acting in it. But he was also, he smoked a lot of weed throughout the day.
I'm trying to narrow down which hip hop artist it might be, but that's not enough of a clue for me.
But yeah, we would start the day and his voice would be crisp. And then like at six hours in, it would be raspy. And at 12 hours in, it would be pretty non-existent.
And this is all within one, what's supposed to be a continuous scene? Oh God, that's a nightmare. That actually leads me into the next question. That's perfect. In terms of on-set culture, how much do you think that affects your ability to mitigate how much environmental and background noise you get in your recordings?
It's really important. There are some producers, and I'll start with them because we're saying from the top down, the only thing they can see is the schedule and the budget. And the other stuff is secondary, or it's things that they'll pass on. Unfortunately, we have a little more leeway than a lot of other departments to fix things in post. And for better or for worse, it sometimes benefits us, but it also often is a very quick and easy way to dismiss us. And I understand the necessity of that. I understand sometimes you have an actor availability issue, you have a location availability issue, you'll have the sun is setting, you are way behind. There's all these other factors that come into play.
So a lot of my clients are doing a lot of creative content shoots. So just interviews where you've got a lav and a boom and, someone on camera. Do you have any tips for them on the best way to avoid really noisy interviews?
When I first started, I used to work on a series in the UK called The South Bank Show, where we would follow a creative person around for a period of time. But we would do a lot of things on the fly, following them for rehearsals, little pieces there, and it was exactly that setup, a boom, maybe a lav. It's a combination of things. One, you have to build a relationship with the people that you're working with. You have to get involved with them. You have to remind them that the sound is a component of what they're working on, to think about it from not just a camera point of view, but a sound point of view, and to be very present yourself. If you get there and you notice a problem, then mention the problem, get ahead of it. I did one recently, I'm working on a documentary at the moment. We were filming in a house and they were setting up a shot, and I spoke with the camera people about where they were going to place it. And we actually set the person back just a couple of feet because it put them onto a rug that was in the room. And it was a very small adjustment. I just said, all this will do, the mic's going to be pointing down, it's going to stop that reverb from coming off of the floor. It will really help. Being involved, I think, is a real big part of it, and looking around, seeing the things that are going to make noises, seeing the air conditioning vent, knowing where generators are placed. If there's a production team on set, if they're sitting there with a bunch of laptops, making sure that they're far enough away so that when the fans kick in or when any noise comes out of the laptop, you're not directly on set. And just working with people, that's I think is the big thing.
I just want to finish up with two questions, which the first one is just kind of a fun question, which is, can you just kind of tell me the worst on-set situation you've ever walked into for noise in your career?
Yeah, I got two answers for you. One is more recent. I walked onto a location. It was the swimming pool of a hotel downtown, and there was a lot of people in the pool talking, people not very well dressed talking to people. There was this beautiful view. It wasn't an infinity pool, but it had that kind of feel where it was a very flat pool to an edge. And then you had a view of downtown, but in every other direction, there were cranes, there was building work going on. There was like 6 or 7 tower blocks being built around it. And even below where the swimming pool was, there was this noise that existed underneath there.
So just total construction everywhere.
Yeah. The other one was, we were working on a feature where we were very close to Heathrow Airport. And it was this beautiful, stately home, like an 11th century Tudor house that we were filming at. 2 characters in deck chairs having a huge conversation. It was on film, so we're talking like a 7 or 8 page dialogue scene. And we timed the points that the airplanes were coming and going. And we worked out the point where it fell off enough that we could get away with it, and when it built up enough. And we broke it down to, we had I think it was a 1 and 47 second window. And we worked with the actors so that they would start as soon as we signaled. And they would start doing the lines, and then they would stop, and then they would wait for 40 seconds, then they would start again. And luckily these actors were like, they nailed it. They were really on it. But it was one of those things where it's like, this is a big ask. This is something that this could go horribly wrong if this doesn't work for them.
I mean, to pull that off is like when the crew and the talent are aligned. Same mission, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get this done properly. Like, that's really impressive. Well, then I think my last question is just, any other techniques you have to suggest to people watching, that have been in tricky situations with noise on sets, how to mitigate that? Just, you mentioned baffling. Is there any other thing you want to kind of throw out there?
So again, it's that prioritizing and working out what's closest, what's loudest, and what is in that mid-range, what's in the voice range that is going to be the most affecting. There's a lot of building things and finding ways of wrapping things up. Furniture pads and carpets especially are really, really helpful. But there's a lot of running around, noticing who is noisy, noticing what noise they're making, working with background, working with props and stuff like that. A lot of work with props, especially if you're doing if you're doing like a restaurant scene or something like that. There are ways of hiding mats down for people to put things on, making sure that ice cubes are either not real ice cubes, or if they do have a bunch of ice cubes, limiting the number of ice cubes that are in a glass and stuff like that.
What about silverware? Do they have any like special silverware that's not metal or
I wish they did.
Yeah.
That is something that is really, the number of restaurant scenes I've done where you just hear a huge ting noise in the background.
Yeah, plates and glasses and silverware would just, It's crazy if you really think about all the possibilities. I'm just glad I'm not an on-set mixer. Because it sounds very stressful. And it is funny because like in post, we're so privileged in that we are on the other side of it. Well, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time so much, and your knowledge is just unbelievable. So thank you so much for taking the time, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.